忍者玉は一粒で一食分。おそらくお主は5日分は食べたようでござる。
Oh, come on. That wouldn't even work as an appetizer for most shonen protagonists.
Following up on the events of the last episode, Tsurugi did what most players do when they get new cards, playtest them. Specifically, he played with just a plain old mat, and against Ringer, who he lost to, hinting at the old droid's skills. More on that in a future episode, but he did foreshadow another application of Tsurugi's new Flame Field cards. Meanwhile, the other Sword Eyes of Light were looking for their comrades and report back to Tsurugi.
100人の目を見るも、ソードアイズは光も闇も発見ならずに当たる予定にござそう。
Yeah, are we sure he's looking for a Sword Eyes and not a Gios? Probably should use that joke on his first episode.
Later, Kizakura shared her findings, which weren't related to any of their new friends, but rather one of their old enemies. As it turned out, Gordy just so happened to be a former resident of the town they were in, and had been viewed as a hero after being selected as a member of the king's court.
Yeah, that's what everyone says when someone from their town becomes a celebrity, and then they read the newspapers.
Tsurugi, kind of rightfully, wanted to be the one to break the news to them, but equally rightfully, Kizakura tried to maintain their image of their false idol. Ultimately, though, none of it would really matter, as after learning about Tsurugi's location and wanting to take the Sword of Judgment for himself, Gordy launched an attack with his uniquely designed warship. Yeah, I know we've seen this thing in a few episodes, but getting a closer look at it, doesn't it look like a pair of long...
Privates! We have reports of an unidentified flying object!
Anyway, Gordy caused a lot of property damage to his hometown just to drag out Tsurugi. Thus our hero accepted a challenge from him under the condition that he stop his attack. Thus we got round 2 between the Sword Eyes. The game played out pretty typically, though Tsurugi did prioritize getting his shining combo out ASAP, even though it only resulted in 1 destruction. This was likely him adjusting his strategies, knowing it was better not to let Gordy and his bugs swarm him like in the previous fight. Again, good on him for learning from his mistakes, but more importantly, he wanted to learn why someone who was so admired by his hometown would turn out like this.
Don't let this dude ever meet Nozomi Umehara.
I do actually like this, as it is hinting at some future developments for Gordy's character. For now though, he was still his usual tricky player self as he summoned his diabolical mantis to the field. He used it in combination with his Nexus, the stronghold of the demonic insect, which on top of allowing him to use his spirit's hand card exchange effect, also let him do swift summons at no cost. Again, good advertising for the show's main selling point, which Tsurugi then took part in.
Well, it did work for one of his VA's other characters. Still best boy, by the way.
He played his new card to negate Diabolical Mantis' forced tap effect, followed by using a second copy to use its other effect, which was a 1-turn power boost, giving him enough to defeat the bug. Again, a good showing of Tsurugi's growth, as he even willingly left his dragon in a weaker state to lure Gordy into attacking it, and ironically using his own sneak attack tactics against him. With that, he ended the fight with an all-out attack, and from there, he then tried to force a redemption arc for the evil eye user.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet he just came to ask for more money.
I mean, again, there is actually more to Gordy's arc, but still, Tsurugi is making some big and kind of unfounded assumptions here, especially considering all the damage he just did. And ultimately, it didn't matter, as Yaiba finally came in to reclaim his disloyal servant. With that, the episode ended with Gordy almost getting the AI Somnium Files treatment, but Gardos managed to convince his king otherwise. Again, where's this guy's helmet? Since we have time, we'll just roll into the next episode, and the introduction of a couple more Sword Eyes. After a rather drastic change in scenery from a port to a desert town, we were introduced to Rivore, the purple Sword Eyes of Darkness. However, he clarified that he wasn't working under Yaiba, likely because he was too pompous for even the king. The Sword Eyes of Light all managed to regroup, with Sora officially joining the team, and them unknowingly getting another member. Yeah, slight spoiler here, but he's the purple Sword Eye of Light, that the opening kind of gave away, so yeah, it doesn't really matter.
その葉を揺らして伝えてくれないかい。
木に話しかけてるけど。
Now you see, this is what happens when you raise your kids watching Planetina.
Suo here was looking for a particular magical tree that seemed to be near Hagakure's village. Thus they offered to take him there, but first they had to deal with this walking cliche. Like, seriously brah, I know you're voiced by Hisoka, but he can actually make the whole refined rose thing work. For the most part. Anyway, he was there to take back Suo, who he claimed was his property, and no, it's not quite as bad as you're imagining, though it's still really bad. Regardless, in the process, he also ended up destroying a bunch of fruits that Kizakura had just taken a shine to. That, combined with his objectification of Suo, set her off, and she challenged him to a fight in spite of still not having her sword brave, while Rivore had already gotten his. And again, I gotta wonder if Toei took a few cues from this show for Mahotsukai Precure, just saying. Anyway, Rivore of course used a purple deck similar to Zardo from episode 5, and Kizakura used yellow, which had a motif of fairies and angels, and often relied on spells that would debuff the enemy. In Kizakura's case, her strategy was to weaken the enemy's attack to 0, which would then trigger her Angelia Prima's automatic destruction effect. As a result, she did get the early advantage in the fight. Partway into the fight, Rivore clarified that Suo was indeed his own creation.
錬金術です。その話はここではいい。
私そういう難しい話ノーサンキューだから。
Wow, someone who doesn't praise FMA to the high heavens. Don't get me wrong, I like both shows, but I just kind of get tired of everyone saying it's the greatest thing ever.
In exchange for his exposition, Rivore asked Kizakura why she was so set off by him. And of course, it was because of his wasteful nature towards both food and a person's life, which through a brief flashback, we could see that she had a hard time maintaining both of those growing up. Again, I just love how the show highlights the differences between the societal classes. Anyway, the fight started to take a turn when Rivore summoned his key spirit.
黒きライオンバルト・アンデレスを召喚。
And in the next turn, when he summoned his sword brave, the Executioner. Both cards had destruction effects when battling, though in Executioner's case, it needed to destroy itself in the process. With our enemy spirit weakened, Kizakura tried to use her Primus effect again, and it did work, except purple cards, including Balander's, had zombie motifs and effects. In this case, when destroyed, the opponent would have to randomly discard a card in their hand, and if it was a spirit, its destruction would be negated. Moreover, Executioner's effect also allowed itself to be revived upon the destruction of another zombie spirit. Obviously, this is all meant to symbolize Rivore's warped perception of perfection, and how if he viewed it as something otherwise, it was better off just destroyed so that it could at least become material for his next attempt at perfection.
やっぱり。
Yeah, it says something when the factious tyrant is preferable to this dude. Fortunately, Suo ran off as the fight was ending. With that, the episode ended with everyone pursuing the runaway homunculus, with the Sword Eyes of Light taking a pretty sweet skyship built supposedly by Sora, though I think he just stole it from Sid.
One thing I really like about this show, unlike a certain other anime that we review on a weekly basis, is how they handle their villains.
Aside from Tsurugi trying to rush his redemption arc, they at least were trying to show a different side to the scheming Gordy, with hints of him being a fallen hero. Conversely, Rivore's introduction into the show highlighted how much of an elitist douchebag he was, in the best ways possible.
I mean, at least he has a personality, and does add to the world building.
Just from his first scene at his house, we could tell that Rivore came from the upper crust, whilst in the same episode, we learned that Kizakura came from the slums. As a result, they made for perfect foils for each other in this fight that was even kind of cleverly symbolized with their cards. Kizakura's strategy mostly involved weakening Rivore's spirits, or you could say evening the playing field, with her having needed to work her way up to her current life as a sweets producer, all the while trying to make full use of the meager cards she had. Meanwhile, Rivore and his privileged ego focused on dominating power plays with little regard for his spirits, as even some of his combos work when he let them, or Kizakura's cards, get destroyed so that they could be resurrected. For him, it was all about working towards his ideals of perfection, which he had attempted when creating a perfect homunculus in Suo. And when that didn't work out, he just wanted to scrap the still very much living boy and start over. Yeah, needless to say, he was an asshole on multiple levels, and yet very enjoyable, as not only did his and Kizaku's fight further highlight this world's class divide, but it also kickstarted the latter's arc. As for what exactly he was trying to do with Suo, well, it was cleverly hinted when he seemed to be annoyed by Sora's interactions with his little brother, Long, and again, he's an alchemist obsessed with resurrections. Yeah, get ready for a few more FMA comparisons. Anyway, while Gordy's episode was more just set up for some of his later developments in the show, as well as to give Tsurugi back his win, it did stop fine enough and at least highlighted the cards. However, yeah, episode 9 was easily the stronger of the two episodes, as it had some great character work symbolized through the children's card game, which is always an impressive feat in my opinion. Sympathetic villains can be fine, but elitist assholes just tend to be a lot more fun to watch, especially when they eventually get what they deserve.
Thank you for watching, and be sure to check out some of our other videos, including another Precure Villains video that we hope to do before the end of Halloween.
Yeah, after talking about the antagonists of an underappreciated card game anime, we're kind of feeling like talking about a Precure villain faction who deserve at least a few more flowers. Look forward to it, hopefully in the next couple of weeks.
And until then though, for now my friends, and Hisoka, we've had this conversation before, don't make me have to get the cops.